It's one of the toughest emotional puzzles we face. Forgiveness often feels like it should be a two-way street. We're taught that when someone wrongs us, they should apologize. Only then, with that heartfelt "I'm sorry," can the process of healing begin. But life isn't always that neat, is it? Sometimes the apology never comes. Yet, we're left with this heavy decision. Do we continue to carry the burden, or do we somehow let it go? Forgiveness is complicated, but let's start by saying this. Forgiving someone who doesn't apologize isn't about them. It's about you. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger, disappointment, or bitterness that keeps you tethered to the hurt. Now, I know that sounds easier said than done. It's not. But it is possible, and it's liberating. Imagine this. You're holding a stone, a big, jagged rock that's heavy in your hands. You've been carrying it around for so long that your arms ache, but you refuse to let go. Somehow, this stone has become tied to your identity. It represents the hurt someone caused you, the betrayal, the insult, the neglect. Letting it go feels impossible because if you do, it's like you're saying their actions were okay, like you're letting them off the hook. But the truth is, the person who wronged you might not even realize or care that you're carrying this stone. They've moved on. Meanwhile, you're the one suffering under the weight. Forgiveness is about setting that stone down, not for their sake, but for yours. Let's get real. When someone doesn't apologize, it hurts. It feels like they're invalidating your feelings, like they don't acknowledge the damage they caused. You might lie awake at night, replaying the situation in your head, imagining them finally realizing their mistake and coming to you with regret in their eyes. You picture the moment of reconciliation, where they take responsibility and make things right. But here's the hard truth. That moment may never come. Waiting for it only prolongs your pain. What if, instead, you decide that you deserve peace, regardless of whether they apologize or not? Forgiveness, in this case, becomes a radical act of self-love. It's about saying, I choose to release this hurt because my well-being matters more than holding on to this grudge. It's about reclaiming your emotional space, sweeping out the resentment that's cluttering your heart, and making room for joy, for love, for things that nourish you instead of draining you. Now, you might wonder, how do you forgive someone when they haven't asked for it? How do you get to that place where you can release the anger or sadness without the closure of an apology? Start by recognizing that forgiveness is a process. It's not a switch you flip overnight. Some days you'll feel like you made progress, and other days, the hurt might sneak back in. That's okay. Be gentle with yourself. Understand that forgiveness is not about excusing what they did. You don't have to condone their behavior, and you certainly don't have to forget it. Forgiveness is not about pretending everything is fine or allowing someone to continue hurting you. It's about acknowledging the pain, accepting that it happened, and then deciding to no longer let it control you. One of the most powerful tools in this process is empathy. I know. It sounds crazy to suggest you should have empathy for someone who hurt you, but hear me out. Empathy doesn't mean you're saying they were right. It means you're trying to understand what might have led them to act the way they did. People hurt others for 1,000 reasons. Maybe they're struggling with their own pain. Maybe they were never taught how to handle conflict, or maybe they're simply unaware of the impact of their actions. None of that excuses their behavior, but seeing them as flawed, complicated humans can help you loosen the grip that anger has on your heart. When you realize they're not perfect, that they too are grappling with their own limitations, it becomes easier to step back from the expectation that they'll apologize. And here's the thing. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still choose to distance yourself from them. You can let go of the anger without inviting them back into your life. Forgiveness is about setting boundaries, not about erasing them. Sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is forgive someone in your heart and keep moving forward without them. So, what does forgiveness look like in real life? It might be a quiet moment, sitting by yourself where you decide, I'm not going to let this person's actions define me anymore. It might be journaling about your feelings, pouring out all the pain, and then closing the book on it. It might be having a conversation with a friend or a therapist who helps you process the hurt. There's no right or wrong way to forgive. It's deeply personal, and it's a journey only you can take. But the key is this. Forgiveness is about freedom. It's about choosing not to carry the bitterness, the anger, the sadness with you any longer. It's about giving yourself permission to heal, even when the other person hasn't made amends. And when you reach that place, when you finally let go, you'll feel lighter. You'll find peace. As we wrap up today's conversation, I want to thank you for being here, for taking the time to listen and reflect. Forgiving someone who doesn't apologize is one of the most challenging things we can do, but it's also one of the most empowering. Remember, you are in control of your own happiness. You don't need anyone else's permission to heal. You don't need their apology to move forward.